then where is the base for us to feel so permanent? Isn't it? Yeah? So that's why, and in one of the texts it is said that even the things like food, water, and medicine, which goes to keep us alive, is also cause of our death. Right? If we overeat, the obesity, right? Is major kind of is an epidemic in the Western world, right? Epidemic, we overeat, right? And then also the medicines, which is supposed to keep us alive, if you over-medicate, then it becomes a cause of a death, right? So even the factors which are supposed to keep us alive can also be a cause of a death. So there's nothing we can base our sense of permanence upon, right? Our sense of permanence, not a sense we are going to die, but our sense of permanence that we are not changing right now. We are not changing, right? So that's why the Buddhism, the belief in cause and effect, right? There has to be a cause and there's an effect, right? Then effect itself is a cause and there's an effect, right? It's kind of constantly changing. It's moving. It's constantly changing. Nothing is, static, right? It's constantly changing, right? And for us to believe ourselves instinctively, to see ourselves not changing, being permanent, that's false view, right? And that false view is also built into our negative emotions too, right? When we get angry at someone, a person next to you, like one of your partner, the most beloved person in your life, but when you get angry, there's intense unpleasantness about that person, right? Yeah, isn't it? That person will be the most most beloved person, but in the moment of that anger, that person will appear very unpleasant, isn't it? Yeah. Now, in that fit of anger, the moment that unpleasantness of that person has a permanent street. There's a permanent street. So that's why you want to act upon that anger and say harsh word. Okay? Now if you will, let's suppose, if that person will appear very unpleasant, but at the same moment, you can think that, no, this is my anger's projection, The moment the anger passes away, this person will go back into being the most beloved. Then you might not say that harsh word, right? Yeah? But because the anger projects a sense of permanence, right? On the object of anger, the permanence of being unpleasant. That's why you act upon the anger. That's why you don't think about the consequences of anger, and you exercise that urge, right? So that's why in permanence, there's also a perspective level of permanence built into those negative emotions. Yeah. That's why the impermanence is not only will bring our life more closer to the realistic existence, but also at the same time it will make our life qualitatively that better. Yeah. And one of the key meditations on the death in the Tibetan Buddhism is to stimulate the death while you are alive. Is to stimulate, right? Now, not like those Korean people did, that you have to lie in the coffin, but also to stimulate certain, the certain mindsets that we will go through at the time of death, and make it aware, make us more familiar with those, right? Because at the time of death, there's less fear. Our fear about death, actually what troubles us is the fear about death, not the actual death. Death is in a second, right? Death is in a second, right? They say when you breathe out, the last act of our respiration is to breathe out. And that's it. When we breathe out and we don't breathe in, that's the death, right? So it's as simple as that. We breathe out and we don't breathe in. That's it. But it's a fear of death which makes us suffer, right? It's the fear, right? So as we stimulate the dying process when you're alive, it makes us familiar with the actual process of dying, right? And that way, it can also minimize our fear. Just like the soldiers, when they have to go to war, they will go to put them to training where it's very, make-believe kind of a, battle scene, right? Yeah, and they will train with live bullets and all those live ammunitions, right? To create a kind of real life battlefield scene, so that when they go into actual battle, there's less of a fear, right? So likewise, when we stimulate certain mental mindset, which manifests during the death, when we are alive, that will make us much familiar with the death and the dying process. That when the time comes, we are more at peace with ourselves, right? In the Tibetan, in the Buddhism, peace of mind at the time of death is very important to ensure a better life, right? But regardless of our background, when we die, it has to be peaceful, isn't it? Yeah, peaceful. It has to be peaceful ending, right? So there are certain internal signs that we will go through when we are dying. There are certain internal signs and there are certain external signs. The first internal, because the basic understanding is that the human body is composed of, the basic composition is of 5 different elements. There's earth element, water element, fire element, and wind element, and there's a spatial dimension, or some would say spatial dimension, some would say the element of consciousness or being conscious, right? So when we go through the dying process, there are certain signs which will manifest internally and externally. And that is a sign of each of our element losing its function, and then the next element kind of manifesting. So the first element that going to dissolve is the earth element. It's the earth. Earth element will dissolve into the water element. Water. So the person who is going through this dissolution will see an appearance of mirage. Mirage. Mirage? Right? Mirage. And at the same time, external sign would be that person will lose his bodily function. It means that his limb will, if that person is a strong person, then that person his limb will get weaker, and lose his shine on his face. He will lose his luster. So the sign of mirage is the internal. Internal means the person himself will experience it, but all the persons who are sitting beside him or her will see the external signs. Now, as the earth, because there's a sign of mirage, because the water element is being manifested, right? Now the next is the water element will dissolve into the fire element. And then the internal sign will be a black smoke, like a black kind of house filled with black smoke. Yeah. And then what happens with the external sign would be the water in the eyes, it will dry up. The eye socket will be completely dry, and then there will be no bodily fluid kind of coming out of the body. Then as the fire element dissolves into the wind element, then what will appear is there will be lots of like a like a what should I say, sparks, flying around, sparks. Yeah, sparks flying around. And then the body will lose its heat. Yeah. Then as the fire element dissolves into the wind element, when the wind element dissolves into the consciousness, right? What happens? There will be internal sign would be a kind of a lamp being kind of flickering, a lamp, of a lamp kind of flickering in the wind. And the external sign would be the person will no longer breathe. Yeah. So the dying meditation up to now would be the meditator will first stimulate an appearance of mirage. And then we will imagine our earth element kind of dissolving into water element. Then the practitioner will meditate on that, thinking that now I have lost the function of my earth element, only water element is now functioning. Then later on, this practitioner will drop further down. This time is only visualizing, it's not happening actually, it's just, what should I say, stimulated, right? Then this practitioner will visualize a house filled with smoke, black smoke. Then he will imagine that the water element has lost its function, right? Then the next will come the fire sparks, right? Then the fire element has lost its function. Then the life kind of flickering in the wind, the lamp. Then the practitioner will think, well, now my wind element has dissolved. Yeah. Now at that point, what happens in the physical body? There's 3 different channels. There's 2 channels. There's 1 channel in the center, and the 2 channels on the side. And at a certain points, the 2 channels will coil around the central channel. So what happens is in the central channel there won't be any movement of wind when we are alive. Okay. So when we die, through a natural process, all those knots will untie, will get loose, and then the wind will start flowing inside the body, in the central channel, right? In the central channel. So the moment all the winds are withdrawn inside the central channel, what will happen is we will stop breathing externally, because the wind are now existing inside, right? So what happened is, then there's 4 different stages again. So first is, there is like a white appearance. Everything appears with white. And that white appearance is something like the moon has, during the moon has set, the moon has set. The sun has set, the moon has yet to be appeared, but still there is a kind of a brightness of white, right? It will be that kind of appearance, that kind of appearance. And the next level would be what is called the red appearance. Okay, the red appearance, and that would be something like the sun has not come up. Yeah, sun has not come up, but there's already a ray of sun in the sky. These all are internal signs, And then the third one would be a completely, blackness, completely black. And the 4th stage, the last stage, there will be something clear, and that is the most subtle consciousness in us. So that's why in the monastery, when some of the great masters pass away, that person stays that body stays without being showing what is that called? Rigor mortis, right? Being damaged for days and days. That body stays afresh, without any sign of death being set in. That body, that their limbs are flexible as ever, and that body, as if that person is kind of asleep. So our belief is that that person kind of is meditating on that last stage of the consciousness, right? So my own master, the 100th Gaten Chibai, when he passed away, he was in that state for 25 days. Yeah, and the scientists and the doctors, they came with all those scientific equipments, and it was shown that that body, even though it's not as warm as a normal human body, but still has a level of warmth, Yeah, because when I went to see him, they already have that infrared, is it? Imagining screen, and I can see the certain parts of the body there's pockets of heat, yeah, and then the heat at heart level was very pronounced, yeah. So that's why it's believed that there's a consciousness so the consciousness we are experiencing during a lifetime is only a gross level of consciousness. So when we die, there's a natural process of our consciousness becoming subtler, all the way down till it comes to the clear light stage, which is the end stage, right? And this is something that we all go through. And it's believed that it's a matter of whether one can make most of that opportunity. Because it's believed that when one meditates, when the consciousness is more subtle, then the impact of that meditation is 1,000 times more, better. Yeah. So this is the dying process. So that's why even His Holiness, he says that he does this kind of dissolution process 8 times a day. Yeah. So that is part of his Tantra practice. In the Tantra practice, you have to do lots of dissolution, right? So the dissolution is very much a modeled, it's just a visualization of the dying process. Yeah. So how about we do some visualization here? Can we do that? Yeah. Maybe we can. It might not be the thing that the people do towards the end of the year. It's more like a festive occasion, but let's do a kind of stimulated dying, meditation, right? Okay, so we might do, let's say, 10-15 minutes, and then we might have some question and answer afterwards, right? Okay, first we have to keep our physical posture is very important. So those who are sitting, we are sitting, right? So we have to put our feet flat on the ground. It has to be stable. Hands on the knees. The most important thing is to keep our back straight. And our head a little bit tilted forward. And if possible, ideally one shouldn't close one's eyes. But if you have better visualization, then it's okay to close the eyes too. So it's up to one's own convenience. And the tip of the tongue should be pressed against the palate, because it controls the flow of saliva. Now let's take 3 rounds of deep meditation, deep breathing. Now first let's stable our mind a little bit by placing our mind or our attention on this inflow and outflow of breathing. So first let's just stable our mind a little bit on just to follow our act of breathing in and out. While maintaining this focus on the breathing, if your mind is still wandering away, let's try to bring our focus and attention back to our breathing and try to stabilize our mind on this one object of breathing in and out. While maintaining the stability of our mind, let's shift our focus to the fragile nature of our existence. The fragility in the sense of being so prone to illness, the fragility in the terms of being prone to aging, and fragility in the sense the sheer unpredictable nature of death, and fragility in the sense of the inevitability of the death. Now let's contemplate on this reality for a moment. Just think about how death is not something forced upon us by a third factor, that aging is not forced upon us by an external factor. Death, dying, aging is very much a part of our life. It's very much a part of our existence. And try to embrace this reality of life. Just embrace the reality, how each moment, how each second we are changing, we are progressing further and further in our life. There's never a moment in life which is not changing. There's never a moment in life which is transitory. There's no moment in life where everything is static. Let us try to be peace with this reality. And impress our tendency, the futile nature of our tendency to deny or reject or ignore this reality. How ignoring this reality has, instead of improving our life, is behind the all kind of false presumptions, all kind of false imagination, all kind of false conception. While finding within us a full acceptance of this reality, now let's first stimulate the actual process of dying. Now first visualize the first step of the dying process, of the internal sign of a mirage, a sign that manifests when the earth element dissolves into the water element. And just imagine that we have lost the function of our earth element. Just visualize a clear mirage out in the horizon. You might find yourself kinda emotionally tightening up or being unable to, or a little bit hard to tune into this imagination. But that's the point. Here's the way we have to find the acceptance. Just place your attention on the clear mirage out in the distance. Now the next level, as the water element dissolves into the fire element, let's visualize ourselves this venue filled with smoke. And don't just imagine it as you are just watching it. Imagine you are just experiencing it. That is happening to you. That's the point. Now just as the water element dissolves into the fire element, the internal sign to visualize is the sparks of fire. The sparks of fire flying all around. Just visualize you going through this experience. The next round is the appearance of a flame flickering in the distance, a flame flickering in the distance, and hold tight to that visualization. Now you have finished the four elements, the dissolution of the four elements. Now will come the white appearance as the sky filled with the ray of the moon. Just embrace this visualization. This is a subjective visualization, not just objective. You should imagine yourself going through it. And the next is the red appearance of the sky filled with the ray of sun.